Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Where Ace Takes You event tonight. We're really excited to have you join us. And our event tonight will have a specific focus on faith and ministry. And we have some ACE graduates as well as a current ACE intern who are going to share their experiences and offer some insights. And we'll, as always, kind of allow some time towards the end for any questions that you have as well. Just a quick reminder, it would be helpful just to keep yourself, your screen and speaker view, and to also keep yourself muted until we get to that Q&A section, and we'll offer some instructions on how to share your questions at that time. So to get started, I'm going to have our panelists just introduce themselves. So for our graduates, if you want to talk a little bit about what your undergraduate background was, what you studied, where you served for ACE, and maybe a little bit of what you're doing now. And then Meredith, if you want to talk a little bit about what your Notre Dame experience has looked like, what you're studying, and maybe anything related to your ACE intern role. So Emma, would you mind starting? And then maybe we'll go to Thomas and Meredith.
For sure. Hi, my name is Emma Fleming. I was an ACE 24. I served as a fourth grade teacher in Stockton. I was a graduate of the University of Notre Dame, and I studied English and Spanish with a minor in their education minor. And currently I have been teaching in Chicago, where I'm from. I teach first grade at a school downtown.
Thanks so much again for hosting this, Bridget and everyone else. My name's Thomas. I was part of ACE 25. So I graduated from Princeton in 2018. I studied computer science with a minor in Russian and also in linguistics. So pretty random subjects. And then I taught high school math and computer science in Jacksonville, Florida for 2 years. So it was a really great experience. Loved teaching there, loved high school, loved the subjects. But I ended up moving on. I'm now currently back in grad school. I'm doing a master's at Cambridge. I'm in the UK right now, currently applying to further grad school opportunities.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meredith. I am one of the ACE interns this year. So I'm a senior studying psychology and English. I am an RA in Kavanaugh Hall. And yeah, I mean, I'm supposed to get my placement in the next few days, so still waiting on that, but we'll see. I'm hoping to teach maybe either middle school or high school English. But as far as my ACE internship experience has been this year, I mean, it's so great. And I absolutely have had the best time getting to know all the other ACE interns and also helping people to try to discern their own path to ACE. So that's been really great. And I'm excited to talk to all of you guys.
Thank you all for sharing a little bit about yourselves. To start our conversation, I'd like to focus on your path to ACE. So I think it would be helpful for the students here to learn a little bit more about experiences that you had in college. It could be communities that you're a part of, leadership roles that you took on, anything kind of connected to faith and ministry, but feel free to also add in other experiences that come to mind that really informed or impacted your decision to pursue a path with ACE. So maybe we'll just follow that same order. I feel like it makes things a little bit easier on Zoom. So really whatever comes to mind in that discernment towards ACE.
Yeah, so I will then start back. In college, I also served as an RA, and I think that was a great experience of leadership. And I was an RA, and I lived in Ryan Hall, which is famously known as the home of Father Joe and Father Joe Carey. And at the time, my rector was an ACE grad, and a lot of my classmates were applying to ACE. At the time of my senior year, though, I had grown up wanting to be a teacher, but I was getting a little nervous because I thought that maybe I just like pigeonholed myself, like I should pursue something else, like maybe God's calling me elsewhere. And so I joined a program called the House of Bridget. And after my senior year, I lived and I worked for a church in Dublin, Ireland. And there, I think I had an opportunity to work with parish schools and serve as a catechist. And it was there that I really felt like, yep, I'm called to be a teacher. Like this was an opportunity that kind of aligned with a lot of my own talents and passions. But I saw that there was still room for growth, and there was still like a challenge awaiting me in teaching. Yeah. And so I thought I'd seen a lot of great friends and mentors who had gone through the ACE program. And I thought that that was most certainly the one that I would want to go and join as well.
I think I want to talk about three things in particular that pushed me sort of on the path towards ACE. And the first, and not in any particular order, the first one was something I was involved with at Princeton called Outdoor Action. So a lot of universities have something similar, but it's a outdoor orientation program where at the beginning of the school year, the new incoming freshman class goes out on this week-long camping trip with orientation leaders. And basically that's sort of their first welcome to campus. So before even sleeping a single night in their dorm rooms, they're spending 5 nights sleeping in a tent with a bunch of random other students and their orientation leaders who sort of give them that initial experience, the group bonding, answering their questions and all that. And it was a really great experience for me as a participant when I came in as a freshman. And I immediately decided I wanted to be a leader. And it ended up becoming a really important part of my life just during my college years. And a lot of sort of the breaks would be taken up by either training for this or going on additional trips. So in addition to the beginning of the year trip, we would have additional training trips and practices, medical trainings, group dynamics trainings. I mean, it ended up taking up a lot of time. But I really, really loved it and found it to be just an incredibly rewarding experience. As I got older, my experience kept changing. But every year I'd get to see the sort of, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed freshmen coming in and see their sort of enthusiasm and nervousness about starting at college. And sort of just be there as a mentor in that capacity to answer their questions, to facilitate meaningful activities, and just to have fun too. But sort of doing all that sort of in this holistic way where, I'm not just sort of imparting information, but I'm also, eating their meals with them and, setting up the tent at night and just, putting aside technology, putting aside other concerns and just sort of being there present to this small group for an extended duration of time. I just found that to be an incredibly meaningful experience and really made me passionate about sort of mentorship and teaching and community building. So that'd be the first thing. The second thing was my involvement in the Catholic student group at Princeton. So I was quite involved in that. There were a lot of opportunities. I definitely found that faith became something much more important to me in college than it was before. And I found a lot of different ways to sort of deepen my spiritual life and connection to prayer and mass and the sacraments and things like that. And so, just through that experience, I knew that I wanted something after graduating where I could live that out authentically, where I could grow further in my faith rather than having it just sort of, drift back to the back burner. And ACE sort of really fit that role. I found, spirituality is just one of the important pillars of ACE and is really integrated into everything. It's not just tacked on as an afterthought, and it really does infuse everything that goes on at ACE. And so it gave me the environment where I could not only live out and be authentic in my faith, but actually, challenge myself and grow further in a lot of different ways. And that was a really strong, again, sort of push in the direction of ACE. And then the third part I would say is just a very meaningful experience I had doing a service project over one of the summers, actually the summer before my senior year. So right at this point when I was sort of debating what I should do with my time after graduating from college. And I ended up traveling abroad, and I spent this summer in Russia working with there's this group of Catholic brothers who work in Russia. And so, I got to experience both the spirituality component of it, but also working with some of their charitable outreach activities. So they worked with at-risk youth to run day camps, orphanages, like old people's homes and things like that as well. So I spent a summer working there and really felt this calling to service in a faith context where, just trying to give back to the community in some way. And so that really sort of pushed me towards, taking that leap to do something that might be a bit more out there or challenging. But, when I found ACE and it was something that integrated spirituality and teaching and mentorship and service, then I really felt like it just clicked.
All right. So when I think about like what specifically led me to ACE, I guess like my RA my freshman year was an ACE intern, so she was always very like excited about it and would love to talk to anybody about it. And so that really like opened up just like the idea of ACE in my mind. It was just her willingness to, you know, be enthusiastic and be willing to tell me how excited she was as an intern before she had even, gotten to teach through ACE. And so I remember my freshman year, she just happened to mention that like, oh, ACE night is coming up and like, you should come. And I had no idea what ACE night was, but I was like, well, okay. I had the night, free. So I showed up in the ACE building and there were a ton of people all just like super excited, and like emotions were so like high that everybody was super happy to be there. And like they had all of these people so excited to talk about this amazing program. And you could really feel just how excited everybody was. And even the interns who, like I said, hadn't even gotten to actually teach through the program yet, but were already just so hyped to have this experience. It just was such a wonderful thing to be able to witness. So kind of that put like the seed in my mind from freshman year, but my whole life I had kind of been thinking about teaching, hadn't really been sure that that's what I would want to do, but learning about ACE definitely, helped me to think more about teaching as an actual path I could pursue. I had gone to Catholic school my whole life, so I, really think there's great value in teaching in a Catholic school. But I hadn't really ever like felt like I was taking ownership of my faith. It was more like, my parents go to church, so I'll go to church, or like I go to Catholic school, so I go like to religion class, and that's cool, but I don't really like feel like I'm connecting to it on a more personal level. But once I got to Notre Dame, I very much like felt like I wanted to tune in on a more personal level to my faith. And my dorm has a spiritual life council that meets every week to discuss like faith and spirituality within the dorm. And so I got involved with that like towards the end of my freshman year. And it was such a great experience to be able to like walk into this group of college age students who all like were excited to talk about their faith and wanted to share their own experiences with each other and just be very open about like all trying to grow and nurture their faith lives more. So I, felt like that was such a cool experience, and I was bummed that it had taken me until I got to college to try to like want to cultivate my faith in that way. So then thinking about like teaching through ACE and hopefully being able to help my students want to cultivate their faith lives, hopefully not just once they get to college, but maybe starting a little earlier would be really great.
Thank you all so much for sharing those thoughtful insights. We have another amazing ACE graduate who has joined us. Danny, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Everyone kind of shared a bit about what they studied in undergrad, where they taught through ACE. And then the first question is just kind of communities or leadership roles or groups that you're a part of that kind of impacted your decision to pursue ACE. So maybe anything that comes to mind there too.
Sure. Thanks so much, Bridget. Hello, everyone. Good evening. So sorry I'm late. Messed up my time zones here. My apologies. My name is Danny Martin. I graduated in 2017 from Notre Dame. I studied international economics and Spanish, as well as a minor in theology. And I was placed in the great state of Mississippi for my time in ACE, the Gulf Coast, Biloxi, Mississippi, where I taught at Resurrection Catholic School as a Spanish teacher for 2 years in Pascagoula nearby. So I guess to answer the question, so I was involved in a couple of different groups in undergrad, particularly with the band. Actually, I was very much into music, as well as a group called Notre Dame Vision, which potentially we've heard about already a little bit. Which, did we hear that from Emma already, if I can ask her or not? Okay, wonderful. So Notre Dame Vision is a summer program for high school students in which students from Notre Dame can be mentors in faith. It's effectively a retreat, a summer conference for students to come and explore vocation in particular and God's call for them. And that was something that I had done in addition to my time in band, which was another large part of my time at Notre Dame in a large community. Finding myself in leadership in the band. I was our drum major my senior year, as well as I was a service commissioner my junior year, and then in Vision for 2 summers working with high school students in the everyday. And so those 2 experiences were pretty fundamental in me applying for, hearing about, first of all, applying for and ending up in teaching as a Spanish teacher. I also did teach theology, but I found that really my experiences with those 2 groups were formative for me, seeing myself as a leader, not just in the big picture, but in the everyday, in the little things, in the little interactions, seeing band members in the hallways, seeing band members out on the field, small conversations, as well as particularly in ministry, being a witness of faith as a young person. I did teach theology, but more than that, I found that my time at Vision was really formative to help me understand myself in my own everyday witness as something that would help me be a mentor in a lot of different ways. And that constant presence of faith, which was cultivated through my time at Notre Dame, kind of somewhat similar to maybe what Meredith was saying a little bit, but it was really, really insightful for me in terms of deciding to actually become a teacher.
That's really helpful. And that's actually kind of a nice segue to my next question. So for our graduates, when you think about some of these experiences that you had in college that pushed you towards ACE, how did they connect to then the work that you were able to do in your classroom, or the life that you were living with, your community members, or whatever really kind of engagement you were having through these 2 years? And for you, Meredith, I know you were just saying, a couple of days you'll know more about your placement, but as you continue to think and prepare for your ACE journey, what are you really hoping to bring into this experience? What are ways that you might hope to grow, or in your faith, or challenge your students in that way? So anything that comes to mind there. So we'll start with Emma. We'll go to Thomas. Danny, we'll add you into the rotation, and then Meredith, we'll have you speak after that.
That's so perfect. And Danny, thanks for that ND Vision plug. I didn't even highlight that. So good that we had that time together too. Thinking about like the habits, I think that were developed in college that then extended to the day-to-day as a teacher. I think this idea and this practice of lean in and lean on. In ACE, there were so many systems of support that were just embedded in the program, whether that be from an academic standpoint, from a personal or communal standpoint. We were really encouraged, but also we kind of got that practice of there were people to help you. And that just like teaching, we were never supposed to do this alone. And you might be in a self-contained classroom, so you might be by yourself with your students. But you really did have such a team and such a support system to lean on as you were growing as a teacher. And so I think in undergrad, just the overall like system that you're living in, like having a dorm and having clubs and sports and band and choirs that you're a part of, you already are practicing this habit of leaning on those friends and those mentors. And as a teacher, that habit just extends to every day. You have so many people in ACE that are willing to be helping you. And that as a teacher, I think that's one of the most important things that you do, is that you lean on each other and you allow yourself to kind of lean into the process.
Yeah, I think just to build off of that, it's I think so important to ask for help and realize that you're part of a community. I think one of the biggest challenges that you can sort of experience as a teacher is if you start to feel isolated or alone, and you don't reach out to those support networks that can help you. But for me, that highlighted this. There is this pretty big shift that happens from when you graduate. You're fresh out of college, or perhaps like I guess in Emma's case or a few other people's, like maybe you did something in between. But going from the undergrad life to suddenly the responsibilities of teaching, there is so much you can draw on. There is so much commonality there, but it also is this big step up in terms of, I guess, what's expected of you. Like, I don't know about you, but in my undergrad, I mean, if I just felt like not going to classes one day, I could just not go to classes, and who's going to stop me, right? Or if I wanted to just sleep in past my alarm, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? But I think with teaching, there is this sudden new level of accountability that you have to have to yourself and to others. And I think the key is sort of that helped me is not seeing that as some burden where it's like, oh my gosh, like if I mess this up, I'm going to get fired. And, all these kids are depending on me. And not in this negative sense, but in seeing that as really this great opportunity of teaching. So, I mean, in my case, I only ended up, staying in teaching for those 2 years. Looking back and just realizing the sheer amount of responsibility that I had, it was also this great privilege where I could come to class and, just have students who would give me their attention. And I would be able to not only teach them, but just, interact with them, ask them about their lives, share my faith, share my journey, share my, just my presence as a person with them and vice versa in this reciprocal sort of relationship. And that became this opportunity where I was actually energized and happy to go into work, even though at times it felt like a bit like this really important responsibility, and it was, but it also became this source of joy and motivation. And I think that sort of I started to realize that I need to motivate myself. Like if I'm not happy to be there, my students aren't going to be happy to be there learning either, right? I have to be excited about being there, about what I'm teaching. I have to see the beauty in the math or the computer science that I'm teaching that day. And then sort of everything else will follow, and the students will also be happy to be there, and I'll feel more energized instead of feeling drained by all the many responsibilities, which there are many, and there are lots of things that can pull you in different directions. But I think just drawing on those connections, as Emma said, those support networks and your faith, and just the opportunity of being a teacher and having that role in a young person's life to sustain you during that time was super important.
I love that, Thomas. I'm just going to build off of what you said too, because the idea that this is a privilege is so important, and it's something that I think that as I became more experienced and I started to worry myself less with the nuts and bolts of teaching, which not to say that that's not important. It is highly important, and I think ACE did a really good job of preparing us. We were intensely and very much prepared to step into the classroom, but it's a privilege to walk with students. And I think that my experience as an undergrad helped form me to begin to think about what that looks like on a really, and like I said earlier, like a really your kids know if when you're in or not. To have they know if you've got skin in the game. And I think that's like something that I used and I think about a lot, like to frame my students' experience in my classroom, academically, culturally, spiritually. If I don't have skin in the game, if I'm not earning respect by the way that I'm treating them, the way that I approach my job, if I don't see it as a privilege, I think high schoolers are actually, in my case, high schoolers, but I think kids in general are very good at sensing that, and seeing that played out over a long time. Because at first you jump into this high level of responsibility where you are highly accountable to your students, highly accountable to your parents, highly accountable to your school, and then as your students start to see that you do have skin in the game, the dynamic does turn into something that is why you get up in the morning. It really was. I still am in teaching. I'm currently teaching high school right now. In the pandemic, with the virtual learning, it's different showing kids that you have skin in the game, but certainly still possible. And especially now, they know when you're in and they know when you're out. And so these experiences in undergrad, which gave me kind of the language and the ability to dive into something really deeply because I was fully responsible for myself. Now being able to move that and shift that responsibility outward, it was something that I'm still definitely working on and working through, but something that has turned into a great privilege. I like that I have skin in the game when I go into work every day, when I turn on Zoom every day.
So for me, I think one experience that I'm definitely learning a lot from and hoping to bring these lessons into my classroom and my community through ACE is my time as an RA in CAV. I feel like, obviously this year has been so difficult, and really learning how to work on a team as our whole staff has been really valuable to me, because I feel like, you can't do everything by yourself necessarily, and it's not a bad thing if you need to lean on other people. That's what they're there for. So to kind of echo what Emma had been saying about just like the amount of support that like you as a first year teacher, you're realistically going to need that help. It's not a bad thing. And so being okay with asking for help when you need it, or like leaning on your community members, is something that I'm really looking forward to. Honestly, I love the kinds of connections that you get to make with your community members. So I think that that is one of like the highlights of the ACE program. But I also just think that, you know, as an RA, there are plenty of times when I feel like I'm not doing enough. Like there's always more you could be doing to help your residents. There's always more that I feel like I'll probably be able to do to try to help my students. And so that can be discouraging, or it can be very motivating. It can make you want to work harder. It can make you want to do more for them. And even if you don't feel like you're doing enough, that doesn't take away from the work that you are doing, because it is so important, and your students are going to need you to help them through hopefully not as difficult of a year next year or in the future, but still, obviously, there will be difficult times that your students are really going to lean on you, and your community members will lean on you, and you just have to keep going and, use that as better motivation for the future, I think.
For our panelists, what advice would you give to anyone who is discerning a path to ACE?
I can offer a few words, and I hope we can hear from everyone. I think one, I remember being told to pray about it a lot, and I was kind of frustrated by that because I wanted a direct answer, and that doesn't always come from prayer. I also think just talking with the team, the ACE team, and you guys are just wealths of knowledge, and you are so generous with your time as well, leaning on those ACE team members of the pastoral staff and the directors, just to learn more and to ask your questions. And then finally, to talk with those who you trust, your like trusted friends, your trusted mentors, kind of ask them and say, does this sound like, am I crazy? Like, does this sound like something that fits with what I would like to do? And just kind of gauging their input as well. I was blessed to have known many people who did the program. And so that was lovely to lean on. But those would be kind of my little advice, like go to God, go to the ACE team, and then go to your family and friends.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult and somewhat personal decision. I think like for me, what I definitely thought going in was, there's no way I'm going to regret spending 2 years teaching these kids, right? And I had these experiences as I described that made me think I would get something out of it, and hopefully not be terrible at it. And I guess I had a willingness to grow, and obviously so much uncertainty, but I think you're not going to regret it. So unless you have like if you feel that there is this calling, then it's probably there for a reason. And what's sort of the worst that can happen? I guess just sort of be open. Don't feel like you need to have like your entire life planned out for the next 5 years. Like you can do this, and very unexpected things may happen as a result. But you won't regret offering 2 years of your life to be there for these kids. Like they won't forget it.
I think I would echo all that, certainly turning to God, certainly thinking about that. One thing that was important for me in my discernment was envisioning myself as a teacher. One of the key points where I realized that I had another option for a job, and I realized that I wasn't thinking about moving out to where that job was. I wasn't really thinking about in my subconscious what that would be like to move to a new city. I was thinking about what I might be like in the classroom, what kind of interactions I might be able to have with students. So I think one other thing I would say is just place trust in God and dare to dream a little bit. Dare to envision yourself in that space. Dare to envision what you might be like as a teacher. Dare to envision what you might say to a student in a tough situation, or just at the beginning of the day, because those were the moments that I cherish, and they're not at all what I envisioned when I was discerning ACE. But that step of envisioning what that might be like was something that really helped me discern.
I think the openness that Thomas talked about is really important, especially like if you're not 100% sure if you're going to want to teach post ACE. Like I don't know for sure what I'm going to want to do after my 2 years of ACE, but I think like no matter what I end up doing, no matter what field I end up working in, my time in ACE is going to be so valuable for whatever I end up, like wherever I end up. Because, you know, I do envision my time in ACE giving me so much experience and just like knowledge about working with others and serving others. And no matter what capacity I end up doing that in, I think my 2 years in ACE are going to help me. So I would encourage you, even if you're not sure about teaching, you know, for the next 30 years of your life or whatever, I do think that it can teach you some really valuable lessons anyway.
Thank you so much to our amazing speakers tonight. I've seen some of those reactions earlier, so if you want to throw up a confetti or a clap emoji or a heart, whatever strikes you, just to thank our speakers for sharing their time and insights. And thanks to all the students too for joining us tonight. We have one more Where ACE Takes You event next week, and it will have a focus on leadership and mentorship. And kind of just chatted in that link if you want to join us. And of course, as they've mentioned, you know, we're always available if you have questions, especially if you're discerning an intern or ambassador application. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. But thank you all so much again for being here, and we hope you have a great rest of your night. So take care.